Hey there, this is Shawn and Andy, and welcome to Just Shilling, a podcast that may or may not happen, which is designed for positive people to discuss all things in fandom that they enjoy
Or not.
or not.
I think that sounded good. And just for context, Just Shillin is an idea that came between two friends. We just like to chat and hang out. And we're like, you know what? We should just maybe release this. Maybe. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. This is rough, warts and all. And we're looking for constructive feedback if you have any. But yeah, this is it.
Excellent. So how you doing, Shawn?
Pretty good, man. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I'm good. Yeah, it's been it's a rather dark and dreary time over here in the UK at the moment. January is here. We have a long time to look forward to summer vacations or anything like that. So it's all about knuckling down, enjoying the content that we have available at our disposal today, and really just cracking on with the drudgery of normal life and work until we can have some fun. But yeah, apart from that, I'm always smiling and trying to stay positive. What about yourself?
I think it's about the same over here. For in case you didn't know, I'm in Lake Tahoe, California, and it's about the same. You know, it's cold and dreary where the snow has started to pick up, and kind of buckling down for winter and trying to make my list of content that I want to consume. You know, I try to be active during the warmer months, and then the winter months just kind of that's when I binge all of my content, and I'm looking forward to some stuff. And I'm also looking forward to some of the things on the horizon, which I'm sure we'll get into. But yeah, same kind of thing. Should we introduce ourselves to people
Yeah,
who
yeah.
aren't familiar?
Yeah, when we do this properly, I guess we're going to have to
Yeah.
introduce ourselves and explain who we are and where we come from. Why don't you shoot as a veteran of our wonderful fan community? Why don't you introduce yourself first, my friend?
Well, first of all, I'm flattered that you call me a veteran of the community. I mean, I still feel like an outsider and a newbie, but that's that's flattering to hear. But I'll jump right in. My name is Shawn Hoffman. You may have heard my name throughout miscellaneous podcasts and things like that. I usually, up until now, I've tended to stay in the background and build websites and do all sorts of other stuff for my friends. But after meeting Andy in London, you know, we kind of hit it off and found found our conversations therapeutic. So we decided to just kind of keep maybe formalize it a little bit. Maybe we'll see. But yeah, I'm in the U.S. I'm California. I love to build websites and things like that, and do other goofy stuff. And I love Star Wars and other pop culture content. And I love talking about it. I love talking about the positive aspects, the kind of breaking it down. I love kind of like theorizing, like in the middle of a season, just talking about like what we think is going to happen, talking about upcoming movies and content and stuff like that. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. What about you, Andy? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm based in the UK. I'm a father of two adult daughters now. Happily married for approaching 30 years next year, which probably explains why I don't take stuff too seriously because you can't.
This is where we insert the clapping, the clap. Congratulations! Yay!
But yeah, I mean, I've forever been a fan of many different types of sci-fi, fantasy, criminology, crime stories. Sorry, crime stories. Many different types of media, but obviously my first love is Star Wars. I saw it when I was 5 years old in the cinema. I'm that old that I saw A New Hope in the cinema. I remember it as if it was yesterday, and it really did influence my life and who I wanted to be, and actually maybe one or two even some career decisions. Certainly on the education side of things, I've very much been like yourself, very much felt as if I've been in the background, and in fact, I was quite happy to be quite comfortably anonymous in the community for quite a few years, actually. And it was only so I followed many podcasts that I felt were like minded, didn't take themselves too seriously, was stoked about content, had a very positive and demeanor about their fandom, and like I said, most importantly, didn't take themselves or indeed the media itself too seriously, and very happy just to remain anonymous for quite a few years. And I'm going all the way back from perhaps the first one of the first podcasts I listened to was maybe 2013, 2014, so at least a year prior to the new Disney content. But and I was happy in my in my blissful anonymity. That's the word I need
You're in your
to get
safe
around.
space. Your safe
In my
space of
safe
being
space.
comfortable
Yeah,
with,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Listening to these pods when I on a weekly basis when I walk the dog or drove to work, and it was during lockdown. So lockdown came, and I made the I made the I'm a big boy now, and I made a brave decision to start reaching out to a few folk and say, hey, listen, I've been listening to you for 4 or 5 years. I think what you're doing is pretty great. Let's connect on what was Twitter or Discord or so on and so forth. And it's really started there. Again, very much in the periphery, but making these kind of connections. And during one of my favorite people, let alone podcasts, was the Bad Motivators. And Eric from the Bad Motivators, I think, when he was gaming on Twitch,
Yep.
made an introduction between you and I because we were both going to Celebration, and I was as nervous as hell. I'm probably one of the oldest people within our group, as it were, but I was as nervous as a schoolboy on his first day going to school, meeting you guys, and you made it very easy for me to join the team or to get involved. And I met up with all of you in Celebration. We had a great time during the day, enjoying the event, and partied pretty hard in the evening as well. And I really came away from that thinking these are my people, and I missed you all a great deal when Celebration was over, and so wanted to make an effort to kind of sustain the friendship that I felt was growing. And you and I have spoken either with others in the community, or just face to face on our own since Celebration. And the opportunity to kind of galvanize our conversation in this kind of format is great, because you're like I said, I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself, you're a like-minded person in that you just love the stuff that we're getting. There's stuff that you like, there's stuff that you don't like, there's stuff that you're indifferent about, but ultimately you're generally quite a positive person, and quite frankly, don't like I said, don't take yourself or the content too seriously. So that's me. That's me.
Well, to add to what you're saying, I think it's coming away from Celebration. Like I was extremely motivated as well
Mm,
to kind of maintain those relationships because, like, I've always joked about it in the past of like, yeah, I have a lot of friends, but very few friendships.
mm,
Where it's like, yeah, you can count the number of people, but the number that you actively engage with and feel like you're actually having a real, like a true conversation is pretty limited, especially given the lockdowns and given just the general state of like where different people's lives are at. And
mm,
so I know after London, I really wanted to make a focused and conscious effort to continue to stay engaged, not just on like social media, because that's kind of that friend realm where it's like, yeah, people like your tweets or give you a thumbs up reaction or whatever, but that's not real engagement. That's not real back and forth discussions. And I know that we all engage differently and engage in different areas, but I think when you find that group of people that are not just like-minded, because I think there's individuals who maybe aren't as like-minded, but they can engage the same way. They're open
Mm.
and willing to have a constructive conversation of where you're not getting hateful, you're not putting your emotions into it too much, and you can hear dissenting opinions, and
Oh
it's
yeah, yeah,
and it's
yeah.
all it's
Like,
all
like,
it's all in
like
good fun.
yeah, yeah. Like-minded people doesn't necessarily mean they agree with every word you're saying. I mean, a disagreement is a healthy thing. Getting other people's ideas or other people's takes on a situation is actually quite smart, because it may give you a different perspective on something that you may not have considered before. So I mean, when I mean that, when I mean like-minded people, I'm talking about whether they agree with me or not. They're respectful. Like I said, they don't take themselves too seriously, and ultimately, it's all about one of the things that I've taken away from this community, from this team, is that is that it's okay to not like something. It's okay, and similarly, it's okay when you don't like something to really enjoy somebody else's pleasure in
Yeah.
something that you may not agree with, or what you may not like yourself. And that, I think, is wonderful. And that's one of the things that I feel so blessed that I've found a group of folk that respect each other, which I think is, it sounds really simple, but it seems to be so rare. I mean, unlike, my social media presence is zero. I'm only on social media to connect with the people that I engage with. I'm not there to grow my followers. I'm not there to, I don't necessarily want, or to be honest with you, um, I'm not the type of demographic or profile to have a huge social media presence, and I'm cool with that. I mean, it's my number of followers are the same as the number of people that I follow, which is kind of binary. But that kind of suits me, and it's, the reason why I'm really excited about doing this pod is that I get to talk to you, mate, and for posterity, we're gonna record it and see what happens, which I think is great.
Yeah, and I same, like 100%. I think another angle for me is I think after lockdowns, and I mean, for context, my partner hiked the Pacific Crest Trail. It's a trail from Mexico to Canada last summer. It took about 5-6 months, and so at the same time I was off of work, and one of the things that I kind of took away from that is it's like you need the reason one of the reasons I'm excited to do the pod too is the repetition and kind of the schedule and the routine of it, because I think after that last year of just kind of realizing if you don't have something to like pull you, if you don't have that routine, it's very easy to get stuck in a rut and allow that to spiral everything around you. When you don't have that sense of time or anything that forcing function
Mm,
of hey, I'm supposed to be meeting with somebody today, and then so with this, it's kind of combining both of those worlds a little bit of like, hey, let's let's set up some responsibility here, Shawn. Let's get a routine going to do something that you enjoy. It's not like you don't enjoy it, but
mm,
as somebody who tends to err on the side of not starting something unless I've got a routine going. This will be a huge, and like I think it's already paying dividends. Like just forcing that habit of communicating more and not just hiding behind the screen or saying yeah we'll
that's
do it
cool.
we'll do it that day. Yeah.
That's really cool. And in addition to that, because I, like you, it's very easy to let weeks and months go by without having any genuine engagement with folk. Work is quite transactional. The work I do is quite transactional.
Yeah.
And because of, I mean, I was doing hybrid working for quite a few years actually before lockdown, but it's even more so now in that I rarely, very, very rarely these days go into the office anymore. So I'm very, very remote, like yourself, and it's very easy to wake up one morning and we're in March, and it's like, goodness me, I haven't spoken to anyone. And then on that point, actually speaking to people, like-minded people, about the stuff that I like, I never do it. I never ever do it. I love my family with all their heart, with all my heart. Sorry, and they're very tolerant of their old dad, but they're not into the stuff that I'm into. I mean, they think it's kind of quaint that their old dad is into spaceships and laser swords, but they're not into it. And and even my friends in the UK that I grew up with and I went to university with or I work with, they know what I like, but I can't have a discussion with them. It's a very superficial discussion or a very light discussion that I can have with them. I can't get into the nuance. I can't get them into the nuance of the aesthetics of the way that Andor looked. I can't talk about people getting upset about brickwork, on the walls
Yeah.
or screws. I can't go into that kind of that kind of depth, and which is the reason why I like this. I like this kind of engagement with someone like yourself.
Well, like, and those relationships are pre-existing.
Yeah,
They are what they are, and you already have that context. But when you can come in and meet and discuss things with people who, like, our first introduction, which, but besides the thank you Eric Strathers for introducing us onto your Twitch channel. He's like, hey, you should get to know this guy, and it's like I can't even pronounce his screen name, so I'll give it a shot. And then meeting up randomly at the hotel bar, like our first context is like, hey, this person likes Star Wars. I'm
yeah.
like it. We don't have. We could be completely different in every aspect of society, belief systems, whatever. But it's like, if you can come into a room and say, hey, this person likes Star Wars or likes whatever content, like you can really deeply engage in that way,
But it only goes so
without it
far.
being, yeah, for sure. And
It
that's
only
where the
goes
certain groups fit.
exactly. I mean, it only goes so far. I mean, this person loves Star Wars. That's kind of an entry. That's kind of an entry. That's an entry to having a conversation. And you know as well as I do that there are folks that we may or may not engage with anymore. That you have a conversation, and it's like, well,
Not for me.
we don't no. But do you know what I'm trying to say? Is that I mean, there are a bunch of folk years and years ago that I used to follow, and I followed them because Star Wars was their gig,
Yeah,
and over time, their values, their
yeah, exactly.
I didn't perhaps appreciate it. So what I'm trying to say is that, and I'm doing a really bad job of it, is that Star Wars is the entry point, but there's so much more depth into the friendship that you and I have got, for example, now, where it goes way beyond it. We can talk about anything, what the weather's like, and it's that kind of it's kind of beyond Star Wars now, if that makes
Yeah.
any sense
It's
at
just
all.
like, it's like the gateway. It's like the
Yeah,
gateway to a conversation. Then as you continue to work through that, even if you just look through the lens of Star Wars, like just the way that people discuss the films,
yeah,
what they see in it, how they see themselves, and what they're interested in, you start to slowly discern, like, yeah, this person's not really something I want to engage with, or
yeah.
it leads to more. And I think that we see that within the community that we're in. You just see, like, the level of friendships and stuff that have
Hmm.
been formed. I mean, even beyond friendships for some people, which is
Absolutely right.
wild. Like, it's like, congratulations. That's like, it's crazy to kind of take a step back and go, like, all of this, like, it's not a huge community, but it's big enough that these kind of friendships and stuff are forming. And that's, I've like, if you would have asked me 10 years ago, like, if I thought something like this was possible, I would have
Yeah.
like kind of like laughed you out of the room, because Star Wars was always something to me that like I just kind of kept close to the chest a little bit. It's like
Yeah.
not that
Yeah.
not as an embarrassing thing, but like I enjoyed it passionately so much that I didn't really want anybody else to kind of affect it or like kind of ruin it. Or and really I was kind of comfortable with it being
Hmm.
my own thing that I dug into. Like these are my action figures. I'm reading these books. Like this is my own little world that I live in. But then
Yeah.
having that expanded and kind of the door was blown off, and saying like, hey, there's other people that maybe don't fit a stereotype,
Yeah.
and whatever, and you can have all these different worldviews and all these different thought processes, and all different walks of life, and it's like wow, like, and we can actively engage and hang out and do all this. It's like I would have never thought it possible. So
No.
I'm extremely grateful to all of it.
Yeah. Likewise. I almost carbon copy. I thought that Star Wars was my little my little hobby, as my wife likes to put it, my little hobby, and she tolerates me and lets me go off and play with my dollies, and I honestly was again in this blissful ignorance. But it's so much. My life is so much richer from having these kind of relationships, and these engagements. So tell me, we met at Celebration. Tell me your thoughts about Japan. Are you doing Japan?
I'm absolutely doing Japan. I
Excellent.
mean, I say that now and tickets haven't come out yet, because I know that for London, I had a really hard time uh, getting tickets, getting a four
Hmm.
day. Like I wasn't able to get a 4 day. I had to get individual days, and it was quite painful. For Japan, we are planning on going. Madison and I are both planning on going. She'll probably go to like one, or like she says 1 day or an afternoon celebration, but I'm hoping to go for the full 3 days. Hoping to stay close to the
Hmm.
con. I've been to a handful of celebrations now, and starting in my first one that I truly kind of went to was Orlando, and I did the whole like Airbnb miles and miles away, and I can say that that genuinely affected my experience negatively. So then the next celebration in Chicago, or was it whichever one was next? I stayed like a little bit closer, and then in
Hmm.
Anaheim, I was in Chicago. I stayed a little bit closer, like within walking distance, and now it's like, oh my gosh, I can go like I can be more engaged. I can go back to the hotel. I can like walk to these events where people are hanging out and doing stuff. I'm like, all right, this is better. Like it goes hand in hand with like kind of getting more and more involved with the community. And then finally in Anaheim, I stayed like right in the hotel, like 100 yards or whatever that is in meters away from the entrance, so I could just boom 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 walk in and out. It was
You
that
mean
was a game
London?
changer.
You
No,
mean London?
This was in Anaheim, and
Oh wow!
Then in London, I carried that forward, and I was like, I have to stay close. Like
I couldn't believe how close you were.
it was. I was only disappointed that they didn't have the far doors open, so I actually had to go out like one end and kind of do this like they had a bunch of
Yeah.
construction going on, but
Yeah.
that was a game changer too. Of like, oh my gosh, I could go buy stuff, and then I could walk to the
Yeah.
hotel, drop it off, and I could come back with nothing. Like, hey, we're getting ready to go out and go to the bars. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go take my backpack and all this stuff, drop it in the hotel, maybe lay face first on my bed for 5 minutes, and then leave with nothing, and I'm ready to go. And so that's the plan again for Japan, hopefully, as long as hotels are. I mean, it looks like there's a lot of hotels available in that area, but that's kind of the game plan
Yeah.
again.
Yeah. So I'm in a very similar position in that I'm definitely looking for hotels on site or as close to site as I possibly can. Unfortunately, it would have been great if Lucy, my wife, was coming with us, and coming with me, and she was really up for it. But I'm very proud of her actually. She's retrained, so she's gone back to university, and she's training to be a an accountant,
Nice.
and she's already passed her. I can't remember what they call her if you like her remedial qualifications, so that she's officially kind of like a an accountant, but she wants to kind of get to kind of CFO type
Oh, nice.
training. and she's got a finals that year, and only a month or so after celebration. So she's going to be head down and studying. So I'm definitely coming to Japan. However, it will be a whistle stop tour, and I will feel like crap at the end of it because I'll probably fly in a day before, and I'll probably fly out the day after. Simply because if I go to Japan, yes, I want to see all the sights and sounds, but I want to do it with my wife. So I'm
For
coming
sure.
in. I'm coming in exclusively for celebration to hook up with you guys. So
So
the closer to the venue I can get, it'll be perfect for me.
so is she wanting to go into accounting so she can like rein in your Star Wars spending, like figure out how
Well,
to cover all that?
she's already done a good job. The thing is, I'm not very good at collecting. I mean, I've already stopped collecting an awful lot of stuff because it was kind of getting out of hand,
Yeah,
and I've got no room left, quite frankly. But I'm not a very good collector anyway. So I think I shared with you guys a while ago. I've literally gotten rid of a lot of my collection, both my original collection from when I was a kid and the recent, when Black Series came out, it blew my mind. It's like, I'm gonna get them all, gotta get them all, and I gave them away to charity. And my wife is more angry that I gave them away to charity than because she's she's quite rightly said you should have flipped them, but I can't be bothered with the hassle. So a lot of them I gave away to charity, rather than sell them on eBay and at least get a bit of a return on the original investment. But no, I can't be done with that kind of stress. So she's not impressed with me at all.
I apologize for taking us off of Japan, and I'll make a note to we can talk about collecting because as you can, I'm sure you can see behind me, I have similar
Yeah,
stories of collecting and my
yeah,
always adjusted and kind of evolving strategies of how I'm gonna fit stuff in this room and get rid of things. But yeah, it's complicated for sure.
you
But
got
for
a lot of
Japan,
guitars, my friend. You got a lot of
I
guitars.
yeah, I hear that a lot from the misses. Yeah, yeah, they're cool. I like them. For Japan, so what's interesting about Japan? To go back to that, I feel I feel uniquely kind of comfortable with it because I actually just got back from my first Japan trip.
Hmm.
In when did I go? October or November of last year. So I'm hoping much doesn't change from that, but I'm feeling quite comfortable. I keep trying to like sit down and get my notes together to share with everybody, specifically about things like the train, how the trains work, and how because I kind of see some early conversations of people talking about like, oh, I'd love to go do this, and it's like it's only like a 2 or 3 hour train ride, and like I'll inject my opinion and stuff there and be like, like there's there's a lot to do in Japan, and like
Yeah,
depending, I would kind of recommend to people like kind of identify like the areas of things that you want to do. Like, oh, I want to go look at like Edo period stuff, or I want to go look at gardens. I want to go look at this. I want to go do Disney, but not the specifics. And then I'd work around the area that you have, unless you're going to go for like 2 or 3 weeks and have at it. Go buck wild. But I think that's instead of trying to do like day trips, like, oh yeah, the trains are
mm.
fast and they're really far and they go really far, but you don't want to spend your whole time on trains. They are super useful. And
Well,
like
we know someone that might want to spend the entire day on a train. Shout out to
I
Catherine.
yes, and I was gonna say to her, I'm like, I'm afraid that she's not gonna leave. Like they're gonna have to make her leave, like, because it's pretty wild. The train systems
Yeah,
there are something. I mean, I was amazed with London's train system, but then going to Japan, it's like this is a different level
yeah,
of especially coming from the U.S. where our trains are usually freight, especially up here in the mountains, or Amtrak, which I've ridden. I've done that, and it was a fun time, but it's nothing close to what you guys have over there. But
yeah. But I
yeah, I
mean,
mean,
we the scale is slightly different. I mean, we're a
for
very
sure.
small country. It's a very very small country. and we've got more. We've probably got more cars than we actually have space, which is the reason why the government is trying to develop very badly, I might add, the rail infrastructure a little bit. But I'm not going to get into politics. We've got an election. We've got an election coming up this year, and I'm hoping it's an opportunity for change. But that's for another day to talk about politics in the UK.
I was about to say we have an election year this year too, so
Yeah.
and I too don't want to talk about it. So uh, that's we'll leave that one there. But yeah, you said you were going to Japan. You're going to go for the couple days, like
Yeah,
the start
yeah.
day before, day after,
It's
and
gonna hurt. It's gonna hurt. There's gonna be some pretty crappy jet lag. So what I'll try and do is to try and throttle my partying accordingly, to make sure I can stay as close as I possibly. You're shaking your head. I know I'm not very good at that, but I'll try and do the right thing. Try and stay hydrated. Try to find a medium between what is true nighttime and sleep when people are asleep in Japan, and what the time is over in the UK, to kind of not put my body clock too much out of kilter. But listen, we'll see. I can always rest when I get back. I'm not too bothered
yeah,
about it. It's going to be fine.
yeah. I'm about to say there's water in beer. I mean, it's not. I wouldn't necessarily call it hydrating, but
I'm fine for 4 days. Then I'm absolutely
yeah,
fine. That's all I need.
you're good. You're good to go. I mean, we survived London, and that
Yeah,
was that
we
was in
did.
people's old. That was in your backyard and other people's like old stomping grounds, and we all made it out of there. Like I somehow
Yeah,
made it back to my hotel by myself on some nights. So not really sure how I did, but
yeah.
we'll see what
I
happens.
do. I do remember you. I do remember leaving one or two taxis, and you would go one way, I would go the other, and I'm thinking to myself, "Is he all right? Is he
I made
okay?"
I made it somehow. You know,
Yeah,
it's
he made it.
all I had to do is just keep going back to celebrate. It's like I'm just going back to celebration, and then my hotel was right there. That's another
Exactly.
reason why you stay close. It's
Exactly.
it's just so
Exactly.
easy.
So tell me about the. So yeah, I think that's it's good that we've got Japan on the radar. That's something really to look forward to. I guess we've got what, maybe 3, maybe 4 months before tickets come out. At which point it's going to be a chaotic dash to try and book as many tickets as we possibly can. I do
Yeah,
hope. I do hope. Is it Repop that do it?
Reed. I think Reed Pop is still doing it. I believe,
Right. I
and
really
so
hope they get the queuing system sorted out. And I don't mean queuing
tickets.
for the yeah. I'm not talking about the for the events during the celebration. I'm actually talking for the tickets themselves, because you actually bought your tickets before I did, and yet I was able to get a full weekend pass, which is crazy. Which is crazy. They seem to, again, they seem to just drip feed batches of these type of tickets,
Did
and
you
then
get yours
just another batch.
resale or
No,
just
no, no, no. I got
directly from
got
Reed
it got
Pop?
got it direct from the site. Yeah, yeah. It was a relatively painless process as well, which is weird. It was really. I don't know whether it was because I was. They identified that I was dialing in from you. Dialing in. God, what year are we in? I was. I was. I had a UK IP address. I got no idea at all. But it seemed to be very, very painless, which was great, and very was very, very lucky.
But yeah, I do hope. I'm thinking. My thoughts are that it's probably going to be in like April or May when tickets drop.
Yeah.
I'm basing that on nothing more than just past experience, but celebrations have changed a million times, and we'll see. I'm anxiously awaiting it. I'm actually with Japan. I'm actually more anxious about getting the tickets because like you can't really do anything until like I
You've
can't
got them.
commit to yeah until I have them because you never know. And I think a lot of that comes from my experience with going to Japan before. Not that there's any correlation between the two of these, but when trying to get tickets for like Tokyo Disney,
Yeah.
they all of their systems were online there you couldn't call. It was very specific windows of openings and then queuing, and it was always on like Japan time, and so that was just doing that like day backwards time calculation is just something that I'm apparently not good at. and then it was also it's like, not to get all technical about it, but it's like the servers were in Japan. So when it's everybody's racing and I'm going from the US to Japan, and like that lag time and that latency there really kind of made it painful, because I'd be there just boop and it load and everything's gone
Yeah.
like immediately. It's like, oh, come on. So I
Yeah.
think I just have like a, not that I don't think I'm going to get something, but it's just kind of that like anxiety around, I wonder what it's going to be like. Is Repop going to be more prepared than they have been in the past? It does seem to get better each year. I know
Yeah.
that's like relative, but I'm
I
anxious to
also
get tickets
wonder.
so we can start booking stuff and going moving
Yeah, we
forward
can
with
we
that.
can we can start. We can start actually seeing it. Yeah, yeah. I'm with you. Start touching and feeling it, and it feeling real. I also wonder. I do wonder how busy it will be. Now, if you think about London being relatively accessible from the whole of mainland Europe, and also a huge contingent, although not as big, obviously bigger, a huge contingent from the US came, and obviously our Australian friends, well, they'll go anywhere. If it was in Iceland, they'll be there. They go anywhere. They have tickets and they will travel. It's what they do. But I do wonder what the uptake will be in Japan, and I'm guessing it's relatively accessible actually from West Coast US.
Yeah, it's not
What
bad.
is it? 7 or 8 hour flight, something like
It's
that.
about eight. It's about an 8 hour flight. Yeah,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
eight, eight and a
yeah,
half, 8.5 if you're going kind of, yeah, about 8.5. Yeah.
yeah. So in that case, I wonder how many folk from Europe will go, because it's you're talking about a 15-hour flight. Well, from London anyway. I guess it's going to be the further east you go. So France, Germany, Poland, etc., etc. The further east you go, it's going to be less, but it's a relatively well medium haul, I guess you'd call it. I just wonder, and of course it's I don't know what it's like for you guys, but they're not cheap tickets either.
No, they're not. They're not cheap tickets, and that's one of the things that my kind of my running theory on it is that I think it's still going to be packed. I think it's going to be, especially with it
Right?
being only 3 days instead of the four. I think we'll see a different group, but I think there's going to be a lot of people who, this is going to be one of those, like, it's going to be a big trip. Like, this is like
Yeah,
similar
yeah,
to what
yeah,
they always
yeah.
say about, like, I don't know if the comparison makes it over there or not, but like they always compare like Disneyland in California to Disney World in Florida. We're like,
Sure.
Disneyland's pretty accessible and it's like usually a smaller park, and this, but Disney World in Florida, that's where people, like, when people go there internationally, and like that's a big trip. They've been saving for it, like, and it better be great because they've hung a lot of expectations on it. And I think that's
Do you
going
know
to
what?
be this for Japan in a lot of ways.
Do you know, I'm 51 years old and no one's ever explained to me the difference between Disney World and Disneyland. I've always known that I obviously know that they're different, but is it simple? Is it simply the size? So
Mostly,
Disney
yeah.
World is Uber. It's massive.
Disney. So Disneyland was the original, and
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
basically two parks, and it doesn't have a lot of, it has a lot of property, but it's kind of walled in by the city of Anaheim. Like, there's
Right.
hotels and roads all around it. Disney World was developed later, and they bought an absolute monstrosity of property, so it's kind of more insulated. It's got
Got it.
water parks and things like that. And that's as a fun side note, that's actually where Madison and I met when we both worked there in the college program
Oh
in Disney
wow.
World. Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, so I
That's
could I could tell you all
that's
sorts of
cool.
fun stuff about it, but yeah, I mean,
Excellent.
Disney World is huge compared to.
I've never ever understood the concept. I've never. I just kind of assumed that they wouldn't call it Disneyland Two or Disneyland East Coast,
Disney.
Disneyland
It
West
should it
Coast.
should be called Disney Swamp because it's in Florida
Yeah,
and
yeah,
it's
yeah,
basically
yeah.
all swampland that they pumped water out of.
Yeah.
But I digress. But yeah,
That's
it's
re-
but
no, that's really cool.
but yeah, Japan. I think there's a lot of expectations for people who do, because it's gonna be expensive.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing that has me excited and anxious about the tickets coming out, because I think that's when plans will start to solidify for groups of people, because I think
Yeah,
up until that point, everybody's gonna be like, I don't know, maybe like we'll see how it shakes out, because ticket prices change every celebration too. So like if the tickets come out and the prices have doubled, who knows? I don't know what they're going to be.
yeah,
And then people start seeing that it starts becoming real. You start going into the hotel blocks and going, whoa, those that's expensive. Like, I'm optimistic right now. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna be there. But if it's insane, then I mean we're all kind of at that
yeah, exactly.
at the whim of the price setting. So I'm excited and anxious for that time to come. And until then, I will just keep going, because
Well,
it's been radio silence until then. Like,
exactly,
mm,
exactly. And I've always got a back. I've always thought about having a backup plan anyway. And the backup plan is if this is just economically not doable, damn it, I'll wait for Lucy to finish her exams, and we'll get a flight over to the States and start visiting people. That's my backup plan if Japan is not in any way viable. Now, it's going to have to be pretty extreme because I'm very much committed to going. But that would be my backup: is to get on a plane, get a get a Winnebago or something, and experience the length and breadth of do some Sean Hoffman type of driving.
I was about to say, I've done that. I've done that drive more times, like too many times. I've actually done cross country trips twice in the last 2 years, which is two more times than I really thought I would. But yeah,
See,
I mean,
see, as a Brit, that is the dream. That is the dream. As a Brit, that is exactly the dream. I mean, if you're gonna do any type of road trip or go any where all of us, if you ask anyone in the UK, if money was no object and you had to do a road trip, where would you do it? Everyone says the US. Everyone does in the UK. That is the dream.
is it
I'm
is it
sure it's a
because of
I'm sure
is
it's
it
a pain
because
in
of
the ass.
size?
Yeah,
It's
size, but
just
but
because it's
the
like,
but also the magnificence of the whole thing. It's a little bit like you can go from seasons within one country. You can go from different terrains, from the most beautiful forests to the most extreme of deserts within the same country, and it's relatively accessible. Do
yeah,
you understand what I mean?
that's
It's a little
fair.
bit
That's fair.
like, I mean, I've spent some time in New Zealand, and New Zealand's like reminds me of a mini version, but not. Sorry, the guys from my Kiwi friends will start battering me for these comments, but you've got on the two islands in New Zealand, you've got again these little microclimates that are very very different to each other, and you can again be snowboarding off peaks in the morning and basking in the sun in the afternoon within a relatively accessible time frame. But yeah, I mean, Route
Well, we can't.
66, all that stuff, love it,
Yep.
love
We
that
couldn't.
stuff.
Well, we can't talk too highly of New Zealand, because that's actually somewhere that Madison would like to live, and so I kind of have to
Oh
like
yeah,
tamp that down a little bit. So we don't want to speak too highly of it. Although it would put
okay,
us close, it would put me closer to Japan and our Australian friends.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
but yeah, the road trip thing is interesting. Route 66, yeah. Like I think even if Japan works out, I think we gotta start not planning. Let's not go that far, but like let's say you and Lucy come over, and like we'll meet you guys down in SoCal. We'll meet all the
Oh,
SoCal people. Just do
yeah,
a we can road trip across the country, hitting all our friends. Like I got the kind of the route down pretty much by this point, and I know where a lot of people are along the way. I try to stop and visit them when we can, but
yeah. No, that's cool.
no,
That
we
sounds
won't bring the
great.
cats this time though. Like I won't make you suffer through that. So they can stay home. That
Yeah.
that was interesting for sure.
Yes. Yeah. You surprised me when I saw the photographs of you with the cats on your road trip. And I must admit, when you originally posted them, I thought, oh, well, he must be taking them to the kennels. He must be taking them to wherever. And then, like a week or so later, you got more photographs of the cats
They're
in the
still they're
car.
still there.
And they're still there. And then you get the photographs of the cats in your hotel room. And I was thinking, holy crap, he's actually taken the cats with him on this road trip. And you did explain, it was a last minute. last
Yeah.
minute preparations, and it was, and they're good cats. They were quite chilled, very chilled.
They did all right. Like they're pretty chill cats as it is. And we don't have too many issues with them. I mean, I don't know what their final thoughts are on how it went. I think they're happy to be home. I mean, it's not something I'm going to be like, because it's not like we were in a camp or anything. If we had like a motorhome or some RV or something like that we could, like a Winnebago, just to go across country, I think that'd be different. But like
Yeah,
cruising across the country in a regular car with the cats, that was
yeah,
interesting, especially since it was last minute and going across and like we didn't know what we need. We were going to multiple places and then
yeah,
coming back from the holidays too. And we had like gifts from the holidays, and man, you should have seen that trunk, because we had everything all Tetris in there, like a puzzle, and then like a blanket over the top so the cats couldn't get in any. It was wild. I don't think I'm gonna do that again anytime soon, but it was an interesting experience for sure.
awesome, awesome. So we've talked about Japan. Well, we've introduced ourselves. We've explained why we're doing this. In fact, we did it the wrong way around, but as we originally talked about, but we've done that. We've talked about what we've been up to. We've talked about Japan. What news are you excited about at the moment? What are you watching at the moment? What are you excited about? And I'm asking the question across everything, across
Yeah,
absolutely everything at the moment, not just our mutual love for Star Wars, which is, of course, there's some great news there as well, but across everything, what's really on your radar at the moment in the horrible, well, in my world anyway, in the horrible, dreary month of January? What's going on in your brain at the moment?
I think the big things are obviously the low hanging fruit there, which is the news about the Mando movie.
Yeah.
That's exciting. A kind of not. I won't say it was expected, but it's not surprising. But I'm excited for it. I'm excited to see it on the big screen. I'm excited to see if it's like, I won't be disappointed if it's not. Like if it's just a really long. I won't be disappointed if it's just a really long episode of The Mandalorian, but at a movie theater.
Hmm.
That's the bar for me. It's like if it's that, great, that's awesome. I'm excited. If it's more than that, if it's bigger budgets, more special effects, more in more engagement, so it's less of a TV show and more like a movie production, that'll be cool. But just to see the difference between those two and what they can really do without the kind of the television budget and production schedule. I'm really excited for that. I think that'll be really neat. How that all shakes out with everything else in the pipeline, I'm fine with. Like I'm excited for all of it. What stays, what goes, whatever. I'm just
Yeah,
excited
I
for
mean, it, it,
more content.
it's.
Yeah.
I certainly think it's very safe. It's a safe bet for Disney. I don't think I I I I I don't care what we get, to be honest with you, as long as we get it and we're fed well. And with Mandalorian, wasn't so keen on season three, but again, I graze. I graze, and I like some things, I don't like others. The rest of the time, I make my own head canon up, and I'm blissful in that kind of ignorance. But it's they need to they need to let's address the elephant in the room. The elephant in the room is that the fan base has been quite sometimes dysfunctional in terms of its support for Star Wars, and very opinionated, and we we want our Star Wars served to us a certain way, depending on individual tastes, and other people have different tastes to others, which has created friction between disparate groups within the fandom. And quite frankly, I think I've said this before on other pods. The Mandalorian was one of those things that brought everyone together, and everyone thought, "My goodness, this is actually really, really good." But mostly, it expanded expanded beyond the fandom. It's a series that my wife, my children join me in watching, and they'd never watch anything more, should we say, cerebral, like not so much Andor, because my wife did enjoy Andor as a drama in itself, despite the fact that it was Star Wars. But they'd never be interested in any of the other, should we say, productions that we've had. And it's all down to the relationship between Din Djarin and Grogu, and it's a safe bet. And if Star Wars going to be successful in the cinemas, they can't just appeal to the sentiment of the fan base. They've got to get the regular viewer in. They've got to get that family money in. And they have that in Grogu. I'm excited about the Old Republic film that may well be coming out. I'm excited about other things, but they're not the kind of subject matter that would excite my wife, for example, or excite my children, or for them to want to come with me. And I think it's a smart move. I really do. And also in the advent of, should we say, declining or at least static growth in subscription services these days, getting a bit of return on investment as opposed to a TV show being relied upon to grow subscribers, I think is it's a smart move. And you never know; it might be released at cinemas and at Disney Plus at the same time. It's happening at the moment with other subscription services, but I'm looking forward to it, and I'll be. And I think I spoke with the scruffy guy, the scruffy looking podcasters at the weekend just gone, and we were talking about this, and I think it's a good segue into leading up to that Avengers moment as well. So it's reminding in my mind, reminding moviegoers who Grogo is and what he's about and his relationship with this gunslinger, which is almost like giving a run up to the Avengers moment that we believe is going to be the Filoni film. So I'm not gonna. I mean, I spoke way too long with the Scruffies the other day, and I want to go into all of that, but I am looking forward to it. I really am.
Well,
Yeah,
I think you hit the nail on the head there in regards to it being a safe bet, and I say that meaning that that's not a bad thing. Like
yeah,
I know there's been times where people will feel like we're taking things away, like they're taking things away from people, like, oh, we're pushing this movie out, we're pulling this forward, we're doing this as a movie now. And like I try not to hang my heart on the stuff too much and be disappointed, because I know it's going to come, something is going to come eventually, because it's going to keep making money. And at the end of the
sure,
day, these places, they are businesses. They're going to do what makes sense. And to me, like uh, with with my personal experience with projects and things, and I'm sure other people can relate to this as well, but like this immediately screams to me, okay, we're in tough financial times, economic times. We can't be spending big money bucks on big money films. Let's go with something like there's like the big wigs, and then like the leadership for Star
yeah,
Wars, and they're like, all right, let's give them something that's cheaper but also a big win, so then when things level out, we can do the big stuff that we want to do. It's kind of that balance between creative and business of, let's push out, maybe push other things out, bring other things forward, bump Mandalorian Grogu up. And so it's not like we're losing anything, just the timelines are changing. And I think that's, while it sucks, like the my initial, like, I call it my 3-year-old reaction, where I kind of go, man, I want it now. At the same
mm,
time, I have to kind of stop and go, but we're getting so much, and like I'd rather it be good than have it be rushed and rough, and then have it continue to kind of like splinter and fracture the fan base, and then kind of
yeah.
all of social media and everything, all the news is blah blah blah, and then it's all just super super negative. And I think, I mean, I'm no psychologist by any stretch of the imagination, but I do think there is an element of like, maybe time is a good thing in some ways for some of these bigger things. This, give it some space, let them breathe. Not that that's not what I want. Like, I want it all now, please. I would love it. I
Well,
then I'm a, but I
you
think that's
can't.
the thing.
Yeah,
Go
I
ahead.
mean, you can't succeed. You can't you can't sustain excitement, the excitement levels of 2015. You can't, not when there's content coming out all the time. You can't, it's physically impossible to, you know, you have this wave of first nostalgia, then excitement, and then new, and then realization that this new content is something that really lands with you well. And then you, once content becomes commonplace, how can you sustain that initial excitement? I mean, I remember a time where there was a huge gap between the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy. And the
Yeah.
prequel trilogy, the excitement going into Phantom Menace, 25 years this year, by the way, was insane. Absolutely insane.
I remember the excitement for Shadows of the Empire, which wasn't even a movie. And like people were losing their minds over Shadows of the Empire. And it was just
I'm
a,
trying to
a
find some
game,
kit to show you.
a game, a book and stuff. And then all of a sudden you get I had the soundtrack and I like as a I won't say how young I was, but I don't want to make you feel bad. but but I remember playing that soundtrack and being like, I like this, right? I like this. Like
Yeah, 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 yeah.
I like this because this is new. This is I'm gonna listen to this soundtrack like it's my favorite artist, cover to cover, just over and over again. I'm like, I like this. And finally you're just like, man, I gotta stop
But
listening to this. But you're excited.
the whole concept of novel, comic book, video game, and soundtrack as being this multimedia explosion was something new, and it was something fresh for Star Wars that we'd never seen. And subsequently, ironically, the Wachowskis used it for a similar kind of concept for, if you remember Matrix, when Matrix between they released the video game the at the same time as the second film or third film. I can't remember which one it was now, but it was that those kind of multimedia events in the 90s were really frigging cool for someone like myself who was quite influenced with uh, all stuff beyond film at that moment in time. But I find there's one thing that I don't think I've actually thought about until you. No, I've just until I've been speaking to you. Is that one other thing as well? Is that we've had this slate plan or this slate, sorry, from Kennedy, what five years ago, and a lot of it hasn't been realised for various reasons. And unfortunately, we see a little bit too much of how the sausage is made because the directors come and go. There are creative differences. There are fallouts in Hollywood all the frigging time. But because it's Star Wars, it's a catastrophe. And it really doesn't have to be. It's just the industry. It really is. It really is that simple. But one of the things that I was thinking of is that obviously we had only last year in London, we had the three new films. And then obviously the schedule behind those three films is quite fluid at the moment. It's and of course, the naysayers are, oh, we told you, we can't, these guys can't keep to a plan. They're always pissing off their creatives, yada, yada, yada. But it's like, no, we just probably have too much information. And I sometimes wish that the team at Lucasfilm was a little bit more closeted than they are. I feel blessed because we get to see everything, warts and all. But unfortunately, that sometimes just has the adverse effect. Unfortunately, but one of the things I was to my point, I never even considered, despite the fact that I'm feeling quite positive about the change in plan and this Favreau film coming out, I didn't actually consider what the impact of the strike was. Now, the strike was what, 5 or 6 months?
I believe something like that, yeah.
Yeah. So who's to
I could be
say
wrong,
that
but I
that
believe so.
I mean, because I'm not a particularly smart guy. I would have thought, well, 5 to 6 months, that's over now, which means that the delay is naturally 5 to 6 months. But is it? Is a 5 to 6 month stop and the stop of planning and stuff going on going on at the same time that would normally happen during that period? Does a 5 month hiatus, does that actually have an impact of 12 months? Because I think about it about the industry that I'm in, where if we were to manufacture a new product, a month's delay in the early days of production would have an impact of, let's say, a quarter. So I'm wondering if it's the same in the media industry, whereby you're talking 5 to 6 months. Is the net impact of that 5 to 6 month stalemate or static, or of the whole industry being frozen? Does that the actual net result of that actually mean a delay by 12 months or 18 months? And hence the reason why maybe one of the motivations to get this in the, as well as obviously the subscription growth issue, well, maybe one of the motivators is to actually put it on the big screen, because quite frankly, they don't have time to do what they originally planned, because it's the impact is a lot more than 5 months. I don't know. I'm
I
guessing,
think
but I'm just thinking about it from my perspective in my industry, where, like I said, it's like, it's like trying to, it's like when you stop an oil tanker in the middle of the Atlantic. It takes, what is it, 2 or 3 miles to actually stop, to come to a stop. And I'm just wondering whether, like I say, whether the impact of 5 months is actually a loss of 18 months worth of development time. I don't know.
no, I think you're spot on there. Like I don't work in the creative industry like that, but I could see that being a thing because I think there's when we tend to take the 5,000 foot view of these kind of projects, I think there tends to be an assumption it's like Kathleen Kennedy, Favreau, and Filoni sitting in a room with a piece of paper writing it out, and then once they're done they take it and then like it just gets magically gets made. But I think it's all fair to assume that there's a lot of people involved from end to end, and there is a lot of lead time, and so if you have a day where you say everybody needs to go home,
Yeah,
and then 6 months later it's not like everybody comes back and picks things up, like the machine has seized, like,
yeah,
and are the workers even the same? Is it even the same group of people? It's not like it's one to
yeah,
one where you have 20 people leaving one day, then on 6 months later, the same 20. It could be 15 people. It could be a different 15 people for all I know.
mm.
And it's not like they just pick back up. It's like, oh, where'd we leave off? Like, I can't even remember what we talked about in yesterday's meetings, let
Yeah,
alone what we talked about 6 months ago. They're like, what'd you do
yeah,
yesterday? It's like, I already forgot. I probably should have looked what I
yeah,
did
yeah,
yesterday, but I could see that. I bet it takes time to like ramp things back up again because it's not like it's a single process. There's a lot of parallel
yeah,
threads going on: finance, story writing, marketing, whatever bigwig approvals, and just all of these wheels in motion. And I could absolutely see that, like a delay, especially a delay of that magnitude,
yeah,
and affected so many people. And it's not like this is the only thing in their pipeline, too. Lucasfilm and others and Disney aren't just juggling Star Wars. They're juggling the similar things that we could translate this conversation to a different franchise. We could talk about Marvel, where they've
yeah,
been churning things out. They're getting content regularly, and people are still pissed because it's not the quality I want. It's like, well, yeah, in game came out, and then we're all just like trying to chase that high. But it's like, yeah, I think you're spot on with the lag time, the oil tanker analogy and things like that. I think you're right there on that.
but it's not unique to, it's not unique. Not only is it not unique to Disney and subscriptions, sorry, and Disney Plus and the movie content, it's not, it's universal pretty much for every single media company at the moment. They're all trying to work out how to serve us best. Is it quality or is it quantity? We want both because we're naturally greedy, as people, and churning. Sorry, not churning. That's a really inappropriate word. Releasing multi-million-dollar series on their streaming platform when growth is certainly no, well, touch wood, we won't go through a pandemic like that for quite a few years now, but we're not going to see that kind of that kind of consumer appetite again, because we were in a pandemic. We all had to stay at home.
Well, especially when the pool of dollars that they can, like, we use the term growth. but that's really kind of like that's a nice term that we use for it. Like the pool of dollars that they can capture is finite. We only
Yeah.
have so much money for subscriptions. We only have so much money to go to the movies. It's really about capture. Like how can they capture more of the market share from Amazon and Netflix and other movie companies for the biggest bang for their buck. And if times are hard right now, if we're struggling at the grocery store, then that pool of dollars is even smaller, and they're gonna adjust accordingly, which sucks for us. Like we're not gonna get yearly Andor style movies or just two
But even
movies
if
a
we
year.
did, but even if
Yeah.
we did, to your point, we've kind of reached the top of the bell curve,
Yep.
which is the model for most businesses look at, especially when they look at acquisition. They've kind of reached the top of the bell curve, and so the only way up is through acquisition
Mm-hmm.
and through share shift. So
Yep.
you do one or two things, and Disney's buying up. They've already done their major acquisition of Fox, for example. So you've got all of that included, and the next one is share shift. So you still have to steal customers, to your point, from Netflix, from Prime, etc., etc. So there are no net new as a TAM, or as a total attainable market. There are no new subscribers. You're just moving subscribers around to different services and different competitors, and trying to build a model like from that is must be extraordinarily hard, really, really hard.
Well, and then another to your point of how do you encourage that shift even more by creating content that is palatable to a larger group of people.
Mm,
Because, like, not to be too literal about it and,
mm.
and bum people out, but it's like, yeah, Star Wars fans are always going to watch Star Wars. They're always going to watch whatever comes out. As mad as they get, they'll always watch it. But how
Yeah,
do you get their Lucys and their Madisons and stuff to watch it?
yeah,
Put,
yeah,
put first put Grogu in it, and then it's like, oh, okay, now we're willing to watch a show. And then Andor comes out and blows the doors off the thing. But I'll be
yeah,
honest, I don't think I would have ever been able to get anybody to watch Andor if it wasn't for the Mandalorian. And being like, oh, hey, this
yeah,
is actually kind of like, this
yeah,
isn't
yeah,
all
yeah,
pew
yeah,
pew pew laser swords and stereotypically nerd stuff. I'm throwing air quotes up. Like,
yeah,
how do we make more engaging content, not diluting it, but making it more engaging to a larger audience?
yeah. I agree.
It's
I
like,
agree.
I hate to use the analogy, but like it's kind of what Marvel did in a lot of ways, and that's why I think that first kind of like Avengers run was so successful, because they took the stuff that was in the comics that was, you neither had a lot of time or a lot of interest to really kind of consume all that before the movies came out, but then they were able to take those movies and make them more palatable to a larger audience in a way that was easily digestible, and say, like, I haven't seen all the movies, but I get the kind of the general premise. And so now you have to apply that to Star Wars and say, it's like, okay, it can't all be super deep, mythological, mystical, whatever.
Mm.
Like, we want people to subscribe and to be excited about it, and not like, we want to be addicted, kind of like really want to watch each week and stay subscribed, but also not so deep that people are just like, I don't get it. I can't follow this. This is too much. I need like to watch 18 movies worth of context to pick up and carry forward. Um,
Yeah,
so yeah, I'd
it's
love to be a fly on the wall in those meetings, but I'm
it's
trying to go,
tough. I
ooh.
mean, if you think about this the concept of perpetual growth. I mean, you think about, to your point, we started off with Iron Man, we ended with Endgame, and it was the whole thing was permanently ramping, ramping, and then you have that moment. How do you keep it ramping? You don't. You start again, which is kind of where Marvel is at the moment, and it's some folk may well feel a little bit deflated because they've got to start all over again to the next ramp. And
Mm-hmm.
do we have enough? Is there enough vested interest to go through it all again? Because you have to go through it all again
Yeah.
to that ultimate exciting moment.
Well, and
Yeah, it's
especially
it's tough.
some
It's tough. I could never ever work in media, mate, because I wouldn't have a Scooby Doo what to do. I really
oh,
wouldn't. I'd
and I
I'd
think it's
have every I'd have every single, and just this for people that are listening, my favorite character is Chewbacca. So every single Star Wars TV program would be about Chewbacca. It would be there'd be a comedy, there'd be a love story, there'd be a Chewbacca undercover. He goes undercover as a Wampa, so he bleaches his hair and he goes undercover as a Wampa. And the films would all be about Chewbacca and his family as well. So that's the reason why I should never ever really think of myself as a creative, because it would you'd all really have something to complain about then.
Oh, I mean, I shouldn't be one either because I think mine would just be like I don't even know if somebody asked me like if you asked me right now who is your favorite character, I would probably go I don't even know who my favorite character is. I know what my favorite things about Star Wars are. The ships. I love TIE Bomber.
Yeah,
Through like there's just something about the TIE Bomber aesthetically. I think can you see is it behind me? Can you see it? Up there
yeah,
hanging
yeah.
out.
Got it.
And there's something about like the sand trooper aesthetic. It's like, can I make a show with like TIE Bombers and like maybe they're like that's like a kids show. They all have personalities and it's like anthropomorphic spaceships and they're all friends. Like it's an academy where you learn how to be a good spaceship. I don't know. Like so I shouldn't be a creative either.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine the next board meeting? Kathleen and Dave are sitting down, chewing the fat and having their first coffee for the morning. Suddenly, a young intern runs in and says, "You've got to listen to these guys. They're onto something. They're onto something."
We're gonna like copy the aesthetic and kind of the ideals of Bluey, but we're gonna do it with spaceships
And
and
Wookiees.
but it but they're the bad guy ships. It's like, yeah, I don't know. We'll figure that out. But just look at the artwork. Look at the artwork that they came up with. Yeah, that's
Do you know
why.
what? As a
Oof.
kid, with the exception of the Millennium Falcon, I loved, like you, I loved the bad guy ships most. And I've never ever talked to anyone about this. Never ever talked about this. There was when the original Marvel comic book came out again in '77, and in the UK, because it was the days where the UK didn't get the A New Hope until '78. I don't know if you know that, but we had it a year later.
Yeah.
In most for general viewing. I'm not talking about premieres and select viewing, and certainly in conurbations like London, but general viewing was around '78. Well, that's kind of when I first got involved. So things like the novel and the comic books were out before the film was, which really, really, I guess you'd see them as spoilers today, which is the reason why media companies don't do it anymore. But at the time, it just got me even more ramped for this film that I was going to see. Anyway, at the end of the run, at the end of the run of the comics, they carried it on, and the first story after A New Hope was where Han Solo and Chewbacca take the prize money and they want to go and pay off Jabba the Hutt, and they end up either losing the money or the money stolen or what have you, and that's how they end up with this team of ragtag pirates like themselves. One of which is Jackson, the green
The
the green rabbit, the
the
green
rabbit
rabbit.
guy. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Anyway, I addicted to this stuff. I mean, it took what was a really, really perfect space opera that I loved, and it got very, very crazy and very camp very, very quickly in these comics. One of them, I loved it to bits because, again, I loved the Imperial ships, and it was a guy called Crimson Jack who was a pirate, and he'd managed to get his hands on an Imperial Star Destroyer. So basically, he retrofitted an Imperial Star Destroyer, and I think they came across him at least 2 or 3 times. And I think he's the guy that stole. I could be wrong. Don't quote me on this, but I think he's the one that stole Han's reward money. I could be wrong. Anyway, point being, he turns up 2 or 3 times during the original Marvel run, and he's amazing. He's this very, very muscular, because of course, it
Yeah.
had to be muscular. Very, very muscular chap with a shock of red hair, big red beard, hence Crimson Jack. I mean, the clue is in the
Yeah.
name. Wearing this black leotard. I mean, looking like a ginger's Zeus. He looked
Yeah.
absolutely amazing, and he was hilarious. And he had all of these pirates all over the ship, but it was using a Star Destroyer. And as a result of that, all bets were off in my house because I preferred the Imperial vehicles to the Rebel vehicles. So I had Weakways, I had Ugnaughts, I had all of them flying TIE fighters or anything to do with the Imperials because in my mind, they were all pirates and they'd kind of they'd not reprimanded, they'd got their hands on this kit. Sorry, but yes, that was a very long way of saying I agree. I think the Imperial vehicles are trick. They're ace.
That's always been like my biggest struggle ever since I was a kid because I've always loved the bad guy stuff. And I think not to go into this too deeply, but
Do
I
it.
think if I was honest, that was probably my biggest disappointment with the Rise of Skywalker because I'd hoped in my head, I'm like, please let there be a Stormtrooper rebellion and I can finally root for people in
Yeah,
Stormtrooper armor. I'm like, just give me a reason. Just give me a reason to not feel like a bad guy and be like, man, that
yeah,
Stormtrooper armor is pretty freaking cool, though. It'd be cool to
yeah.
see good guys flying TIE fighters. Like, and it didn't happen. I was
That
like, but
that's the one thing that was kind of there was a common thread between both the Force Awakens and the Last Jedi, sorry, that they could have it would have been so sweet as a subplot, as part of Finn's own character development that wouldn't have detracted from the main story, Rey's story, but it was so wicked. The guy rebelled against the guy turned his back on the First Order, and then the Last Jedi when they get caught on the Supremacy, Snoke's big ship. There's a deleted scene, and I'm sure you already know this.
yep,
There's a
yep.
deleted version of the scene where Phasma's going to
The
execute
execution.
them, and he he basically has his has his fellow stormtroopers questioning Phasma's loyalty to the First Order, and that starts sowing the seeds of dissent amongst the stormtroopers. And it would have been so good and it wouldn't have impacted whether you like it or not, the plot of Rise of Skywalker had he led that stormtrooper rebellion, which I think between you and me, my own gut feeling is that actually would have been more impactful for me
Yeah,
and more human than a gazillion spaceships turning up because Lando called them, which I thought was a
yeah.
trick. I thought it was fantastic. Don't get me wrong, but there was no context. There was no. We didn't see who was flying those ships. It was apart from it was a thousand, 10,000 ships turned up, which was visually spectacular, but it lost its kind of humanity a little bit because it was so impersonal.
Well, I think that's the thing I was excited about. I was hoping it would be kind of turn the Star Wars thing on its head a little bit and be more about the everyday,
Yeah,
kind of the everyday person, and kind of like them having a real part in it and being like, and you could have both. You could have the 10,000 ships show up, and it's like, okay, now the battle's equal versus like this insane massive numbers of bad guys. But then the thing that really, I don't know what the proper like creative and story term is, but it's like, okay, now we're equals. But the thing that really turns the tide and really is like the real impact is when you get the Finn Stormtrooper rebellion to then start crushing things from the inside, and like all of a sudden you just start seeing. Like I had the whole head canon, like I'm sure everybody had their own. I'm like all of a sudden you start seeing Star Destroyers going down as people start turning and going like this is wrong, this is whatever,
yep,
and people are just like, holy crap, we've got the advantage now, and like I'm sure there's an element of like juggling, like okay, how do you, if there's people turning on these ships, how do you get them to, you keep attacking those ships and take down the people who are helping you? I don't, but like that's overthinking it. I think there could have been a really
yeah.
like epic moment, like a goosebumpy moment. Like I'm waiting for that. Like,
And it would have, and it would have given, it would have given. Don't get me wrong. You and I are all about positivity. So what we got from Rise of Skywalker, maybe it may not be what we like. There's certain decisions
yeah,
that weren't explained particularly well, and you got to kind of just create your own head canon, which I do a lot of the time to kind of make it work for yourself. But it would have given, you're right, that would have given Finn in particular purpose,
Mhm.
which is something that I never. I mean, we never, we know he's sort of force sensitive. That's now insinuated in media, and confirmed. Sorry, in media, mainly written media, but it was not, that was not followed through at the end of Rise, which even had it been followed through, and that for that to have been kind of the end of the development for Finn, I still think that the rebellion itself would have actually been more meaningful than him being another Jedi.
Yeah.
Anyway, but that's why we do this, right? We love a little bit of headcanon and speculating. We don't get angry about it.
Well, I mean,
It's all good.
if the movies and shows turned out exactly how they were in my head canon, I probably wouldn't be as engaged. Similar to
That's true.
the
That's
same
very true.
same as talking to people of like,
Oh,
if every
that's
time I wrote into a podcast or whatever and people were like, yeah, I think you're right, and then they just moved on, I'm not
yeah,
growing, I'm not learning, I'm not changing, I'm not seeing things through different perspectives. Sometimes perspectives are arguably wrong with how they turn out in movies or shows. I don't know, but who am I to say? But at the same
but
time, it's different. It's
that's the irony of us fans, is that we want our Star Wars the way that we want our Star Wars, but I I want it to be new, but not too new.
yeah.
I want it to be familiar, and also the way I want Star Wars. And if it's not the way I want Star Wars, then there's something wrong. But you need to shock me as well. You need to do something new. It's this forever.
Give
I
me
could not be in media. I
give
could
me
not
new
be in media.
stormtroopers, but don't make it obvious that you're trying to sell toys. Like I want them both. Like, ooh,
Yeah,
I like that you
yeah,
made them red, but like, mm, but if you don't give me new stormtroopers, then I'm gonna be mad. And so
yeah.
it's a delicate balance. It's like what
It's
element?
we
It's a fire trooper now. It's like, oh, we already had that one. Give me a different one.
we're a funny bunch. We are a funny bunch. So outside of Star Wars, my friend, what are you also excited about? What are you watching at the moment? What's on your mind?
Well, I think what I'm most excited about right now is now that my chaotic road trip and Japan trip and family visiting for Thanksgiving and the holidays are finally over and things have settled down again. I'm actually excited about catching up on some video games that I haven't had a chance to catch up on. Specifically, Spider-Man 2. I have it sitting here waiting for me. That's I've been trying to like avoid all the spoilers and stuff for it. That's
Yeah,
kind of been taken up. That's been taking up a lot of my time,
yeah,
and yeah, getting this thing kind of up off the ground and waiting to see what kind of new Star Wars or pop culture news are coming out. I do need to catch up also. Like I'm like the 15 minutes late kind of guy. I'm like, I'm also excited about Loki season 2 whenever that came out, and Echo. I need to catch up on those. Like, I've never been a huge Marvel person, but like the movies kind of got me engaged, and I enjoy the TV show content. I think those are the only two that I haven't watched. I've caught up on I've watched everything else, and so this is pretty unlike me to be this far behind. But obviously, it's been a chaotic couple months. But I'm excited to put those on and see where they're taking them. Like that stuff's kind of fun for me.
yeah. That's cool. What I actually like, because I know that we saw the growth of Marvel, and it's not quite where it was at that time. It's rebuilding itself. It's got to do a few course corrections for actors that no longer can be part of that franchise, and so on. So they're going through the same kind of pain at the moment as the Lucasfilm guys are. But what I really enjoy my Marvel experience as a fan,
Mhm.
because I pick and choose what I want. I'm not as diehard about Marvel as I'm Star Wars. I have to watch everything Star Wars. That's a personal thing. Some stuff, like I said, at the beginning of this call, some stuff I like, some stuff I don't, some stuff I make up in my head to make it fit. But Marvel, I just pick and choose what I like. And like you, I really enjoyed Loki. I didn't so much enjoy some of the other continuation stories like Falcon and Winter Soldier, not because they didn't think they were particularly good production. I thought they were great, but just not my kind of, not my kind of, not my cup of tea. And I quite like dipping in and out of it. I like the way
Yeah.
that I curate my content. I'm loving What If.
Yeah.
I love What If, but I love it in the same context as I love Visions and Star Wars as well, because it's that kind of alternative take that is, it's completely risk free. I love it. I love the fact that these studios are doing this kind of balls out stuff, which is, well, it's not canon, so don't worry about it. But they're doing some really, really interesting stuff, which I think gets the creative juices going. And I wish, if there was something I could wish for Star Wars and for any media, is that I know that there's an awful lot of people that want a good series with a beginning, a middle, and an end, or a cliffhanger to the next season, and so on and so forth. But I love these little individual standalone movies. Call them an anthology if you like. I follow things. I watch an awful lot of stuff like, is it Love, Death, and Robots?
Yeah.
On Netflix, where you've got an individual standalone 20 or 30, like a Black Mirror episode. You've got a
Yeah.
20 or 30 minute episode, and it's not related to anything else in the series, and they go off on different tangents. A little short story with a nice little conclusion, or in some cases a terrible conclusion. I love that kind of stuff. In fact, there's a recommendation to anyone on Prime. It's quite old now. There's a series called Tales from the Loop. It's a really, really good production. It's based on, I've forgotten the chap's name, and I should have done my research, but it's based on a very famous French artist's work, whereby he would draw a very beautiful cornfield in a farm somewhere, and an old oat house and an old barn, but just slip into the background or into the side a little bit of funky technology, sometimes steampunk, but typically a little bit of technology that was out of place of that view. And this program, Tales from the Loop, it was inspired by this artist, and it's a slow burn. It covers some very fantastical subject matter, but it also covers some very, very grounded issues like homosexuality, like same-sex marriage. It kind of covers all of these things within this lovely little universe, this beautiful little universe of kind of used dystopian technology that is a lot more advanced, but kind of beaten up as well. And I would love something like that with Star Wars, where every week is a different story. Whether they connect at the end or not doesn't really matter.
Yeah, it's like I always compare those to like I always call them like the adult children's cartoons where every episode
Yeah,
is like self-contained and always, it doesn't have like a moral per se, but it's like it's got a point. It's
yeah,
got a point or a feeling it's trying to convey, and it's very condensed and very compact. And you have to, it's almost, it feels more like a writing challenge or a writing prompt where it's like, what can you do in 20 to 30 minutes? I love those kind of things too. It'd be interesting to see what they, like. I feel like Visions is a good, like it's kind of there, but I feel like it's more about the art style and things like that.
yes,
Where
yeah,
this show would be more about like like the content, the feeling, and
yeah.
less about the graphics or the medium
Well,
per se.
if you were to take Visions and turn it into a live action, like Black Mirror, for example, like Black
Yeah,
Mirror, and just say, here's a few bucks, go and make a half hour self you know self sustained featurette, call it
Faces of the
whatever you want.
Universe, Faces of
Face
Rebellion.
exactly, whatever. But that kind of, now it's almost like a creative. Let's just create some creative soup that
Yeah,
we can perhaps pull from to give us inspiration for what the future is, or just leave it stand alone. I don't care, but I love the idea of these kind of no nonsense, low risk kind of stuff that can get things going. Because
It's like a
it's a good idea.
televised version of From a Certain Point of View, mine, but maybe
Perfect.
more serious,
Do you know
not
what? Perfect.
less goofy stories, but something.
I couldn't put it better. I spent 5 minutes talking about something that you've captured within a sentence. It's exactly what I meant. It's exactly what I meant.
And they could call it that. They could call it From a Certain Point of View,
Yeah.
from a different
Yeah.
point of view. So it's like
Two
even
two
more.
other things I recommend since you've come back from your road trip. Have you seen The Creator yet?
I did see that. Oh, it was awesome. I was such a. It was not. I went in completely blind. Like I didn't
Yeah,
have a
me too.
clue. I just knew like who made it and things like that, and I drug her with me to go see it in theaters, and was like, this is cool. I like this a
Did she
lot.
enjoy it?
Yeah,
Did Madison
yeah,
enjoy it? She did.
yeah,
Oh, great.
yeah. I
That's
mean,
really cool.
I don't think it's one that she's gonna be like, hey, you want to watch that again?
Yeah.
But no, she enjoyed it when we watched it the first
That's
time.
good. That's good.
I do have some
And
things on
I'm
my I want to rewatch list, but we can cover those.
and I was going to say the other thing I'm looking forward to is some news only this week actually, or over the last week. I don't know if you ever watched the original Danny Boyle 28 Days Later.
Yeah.
Danny Boyle is back, and he's going to do his sequel. There is a sequel to 28 Days Later, which is 28 weeks later, but there's he's going to do 28 years later. And I'm hearing that Cillian Murphy is quite keen to reprise his role as well. So I'm super excited about that. I think Danny Boyle is probably one of my favorite directors. I love the stuff that he does. And yeah, and Cillian obviously is one of my favorite actors as well. Sorry.
That's a movie I have not seen in a long time.
Oh yeah.
I
Yes.
have to rewatch. I mean, I remember enjoying it, but like looking at the screenshots of it here, it's like, yeah, I
I
remember
mean,
this movie. I remember.
it's made on a shoestring. It's so cheap. It's so cheaply made. But if you think about a lot of Danny Boyle's films anyway, they're done. It's all about the people, the characters, and the development, as opposed to as opposed to
Flashy
anything.
special effects and stuff like that.
Well, exactly,
Big
exactly,
budget.
exactly. So yes, my friend, we've been going for an hour and a half. Wow,
That's about an hour longer than I thought we were going to get. You know,
we can do this.
and I think we did this mostly with. I mean, at least I can speak for myself. I came in with no notes, and I think you came in with some general ideas. So yeah,
I
I
just
think this
thought
is.
about how do we, and the notes did me no good anyway because quite frankly, I bust the order of them anyway as soon as I opened my mouth. Anyway, so no, that was great. That was really good. Thank you very much for setting this up, man. This is really cool.